Hi, everyone. Welcome to this testing session. Basically, it's just to ensure that everything is set and we know the flow in terms of what we are set to do. So basically, I think, Christine, how are you?
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, colleague.
You're welcome. Yeah, I want to, okay, so who are the other facilitators from FAO?
Let me call him just to request him to connect.
Okay, great. And which I would like to confirm who the facilitators are and which breakout rooms they would prefer.
Excuse me, Daniel, are you talking to me?
Yes. I said I would like to confirm the facilitators, their names, and then which breakout rooms they would prefer to be in.
The facilitator, I have sent him his name and the biography is called James Munanura. James. And you have his
James and yourself, right?
Yes, James and Christine. James is here.
James,
I'm
welcome.
already here.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
What breakout room would you prefer for the breakout session? Like I said, I think we are organizing the breakouts based on action tracks, and we have 5 action tracks. Yeah. So the first one is ensure access to safe and nutritious food. Let me just drop the link on the chat box. Yeah, so that is the breakout template, and we are going to use that to collate the discussion, to take notes. So Christine, let me know if you are able to access the document.
I'm trying to open it, then I'll let you know.
Okay, great.
I can open it, Daniel.
Yeah, so let me know the breakout based on the action track, the one that you prefer to be in.
You put me on number 1.
Okay, you want that? Okay, good. And for James?
Maybe you can put me on number 5.
Yeah, that's build resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stresses. James Munna.
Yes.
Sorry, let me get it right. Munanura. All right.
Yes.
Daniel, do we have minute takers for these 2 sessions for us?
So unfortunately, it will work either. So it's either we appoint when we get to the breakout, it's either we appoint by ourselves. So Christine, when you get to your breakout session, you appoint minute takers and you share the document link with them, or you take notes by yourself.
That one is clear. It's
Yeah,
similar
so,
you mean similar to James?
Yeah. So we only have facilitators. 3 colleagues of mine are joining to facilitate also.
Okay.
I think so that I'll revisit that of facilitation later. I think we have some of the presenters here. So welcome everybody. This is a test session. So ideally we want to test our microphone, videos, and see that everything it's working perfectly.
Daniel, can we also test the sharing of the screen?
Yeah, exactly. We have to do that too. So essentially, I think I have the presentations, but it's going to be a backup plan. So ideally, we want our presenters to be able to share their screen and to speak to their presentation. Christine, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, Daniel, I was calling Jean-Baptiste to join.
Okay, great.
Can you repeat for me? Can you repeat for me?
I was saying that we expect that our presenters will be able to share their screen and speak to their presentations. But then if there are issues, I think I have the presentations, and then as a backup plan, and then I can share from my end there. So I would like to begin to call our presenters to basically speak so that we can take their mic, their videos, and they can share their screen. Do we have Leonidas Tuze Gemungu?
Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning. May I please request you to change your name, because I can see it as Christine Mukantwali. There is a lot of Christine on the screen here. So please, you have to rename yourself. I see another Christine Mukantwali also.
Christine. She has to change.
So I see that your video is fine, your audio is fine. Okay, yes. Maybe I should rename you then.
Excuse me, Daniel, to change my name, Leonidas should register using the link that we have given for that link to register. Because the reason why that is, I have shared with him the link, my link that they have to register themselves.
No, I think I can change the name from here. So let me just go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's fine now.
Okay.
There's another Christine here now.
Yes.
Who is the other Christine that we have here?
It's Alphonse from Rwanda.
Alphonse.
Yeah, it's okay.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Can you?
Yeah. This is Jean Rubamutsangabo from the city of Kigali. Jean Rubamutsangabo. So I have used the same link shared by Christine. That's why. Yeah.
Can I? What's the
Jean?
Muzang. Can you spell that?
RUBANGUTSANGABO.
Wait, RUBANGUTA?
NGABO. Rubangutsangabo.
Okay, great. I think I've got it. Okay, so Leonidas, can you please share your screen?
Sorry, you are missing S between T and A.
Between T and A.
Yeah, T and A.
So it's TSA.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
I hope we don't have any Christine joining apart from the original Christine.
So just a point of clarification. I have shared this link with the road mayor, Vidance. So we wait him to join before we change the name, or there is another way of helping him when he joins, his name appears instead of Christine again.
Let me check if some of my colleagues have joined. maybe they can assist me with changing the names.
Hi, Daniel, I'm here.
Solo.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi,
Great.
Daniel.
So Rufina, can you please, I don't know if you can assist me to change the name based on, you have the concept note and the program agenda, you will see the names of the mayors there. So if the mayors join and we can't, and they are also Christine, gradually we have to rename them. Let me make you co-host. I think you are now the host, right?
Just one moment. Yes, so I am a co-host as well. So that's so I can change names of participants as they join in.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Leonidas, can you share your screen?
Yes, let me try it.
Sorry, Daniel, whose name do I need to change? Just help me clarify that.
The mayors. So it's Mayor Prudence Rubingiza. When he joins, if we see that the name is also Christine, because I think Christine sent the link to some people, and then I think probably after she has registered. So the names are coming as Christine. So it's both mayors. You can just open the concept note from your end and maybe use that to. Mr. Leonidas?
You have disabled.
Okay.
It's saying the host disabled participants screen sharing. You can enable.
Can you try now?
Yes. Okay. It is being shared. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, great. We can.
Okay.
Can you do the full screen of the presentation?
Yes.
Great. I think everything is in order there. You can stop sharing and let's go to Dr. Kisito.
Okay, good.
Dr. Kisito?
Yes, morning. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but we want to see your video too.
Okay.
To see if everything is all set. Great.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Morning.
Great. Fine. Good morning. Nice
Yeah,
to have you
thank
here.
Yeah.
I think
Let me stop sharing my screen.
And, Dr. John Baptiste.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me properly? This is Jean Baptiste.
Yes, we can hear you properly.
Okay.
But then it can be better actually.
Okay, let me share my screen and see how it looks like.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
and your face? And your face?
Oh, okay. Okay, let me. So I'm trying to fix a number of issues here because internet is very low.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can you see my face? This is my face.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
So if the internet is not too good, then you can switch off your video when you initially you can switch it on to, so that people can see your face. But then if we have signal issues, then you can switch it off.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you too.
And hi, Ms. Peggy Mativo.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good too. Thanks. So I see the video is nice and the audio. Can you share your screen? Oh, okay, great. I see that two names are here. You are co-presenting with James. Oh,
yes.
are you going to hand over to him, or you do the whole presentation now, or do you want to do
So I'll do the presentation for the session.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So for my colleagues from ICLEI, so we've got 3 breakout sessions that we need to take care of. So Rufina, which one would you like to?
Daniel, I think I will.
So 1 and 5 is out. FAO colleagues are handling that.
Okay, just one moment. Sorry, Daniel, just going to the sheet.
It's fine.
Daniel, while Solo's going to the sheet, could you please make me co-host? Because it seems like at the moment I can't access any.
Yeah, it's what I'm trying to do now.
Okay, thank you.
Boost nature positive production. So that is a breakout. That is breakout room 3. So I'll just add my name as a facilitator.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Lauren?
I'm happy to do number 2, shift to sustainable consumption patterns.
Okay, then can you just add that action track to your name?
Yes, I will.
So we. Christine?
Yes, Daniel.
Yeah, so I want to rename you. I want to add the action track to your name, because that is the way we want to
Number
do
1.
it. So I'll do this. 81. Yes, and James 85. Solo?
I'm so renaming myself to action track 3.
Okay, you've done that?
Yes, to action track 3.
Okay. I see that the Deputy Mayor of Rulindo has joined us. Hi, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, good morning, dear all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are we
joined,
expecting?
but the Mayor of Rulindo will not be able to attend because he's in another urgent task by the Governor of Northern Province. So I will represent him.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, it's fine. I think your video is working, and then you can just give the speech. So, do we have the mayor of Kigali here now, or the representative?
The representative is connecting.
Okay. So the representative is Christine Isbu. Can you please introduce me to the representative?
Excuse me?
I was saying that you should please introduce me to the representative.
You want me to do so? Thank you very much.
No. I mean, is it Uimanana Clement or who? Is he on the call now? Is he or she on the call now? The representative of Kigali City.
Oh, not yet connecting. We talked, he's still connecting. By the time he joined, I will. Thank you. Daniel, now the DG in the city of Kigali is here with us. You can just welcome him.
In Jean. The DG.
Thank you so much. Mayor is joining us in just a few minutes. And good morning to everyone. And hello to everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, DG.
Good morning. Good morning.
Daniel, I want to try sharing my screen just to make sure that it's working properly.
That's fine.
Okay, just one moment.
Lauren?
Yes, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, did you get the bios? Did you see the bios?
I saw, just a second, let me just check. I saw it yesterday.
On the link, yeah, on the opening link. So
yes, I see all the bios, yes. Would you like me to paste them?
When they are presenting,
when they're
like
presenting, okay,
when
no
each of
problem.
them, I think I've arranged them in the order of presentation.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I hope everyone was able to see my screen, and is it clear?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So let me share as a way to start, let me share the slide. Let's give it 1 more minute and then we start. I think we can start now. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Adeni, and I am a professional officer in urban systems, and I work with Clear Africa. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Kigali and Rulindo Food Systems Dialogue for today. And I urge everyone to just relax and enjoy the session. Before we begin, may I please remind you of the protocols for this dialogue. The dialogue will be recorded, and therefore, by participating, you are given the consent to be recorded. When we enter breakout rooms, periods of discussion, we urge you to please participate very well by raising your hands, unmuting yourself and discussing. And it will be great if you could also put on your video so that we can see you. We also welcome active discussion even in the chat box. So we welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat box, to tell us who you are and where you are from or what you do. And we urge our presenters that when you are presenting, please keep to time. We have allocated time for us so that we can get through all of our presentations, and we also engage in feedback. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, Daniel, you're clear.
Yeah, please. So, like I was saying, we urge our presenters to keep to time, and when you are presenting, please kindly also try and switch on your video. The recording and the outcome of this dialogue will be made available on our website, and so you can just unmute yourself and when you want to talk to us. And I would like to acknowledge our partners and our colleagues that have been so supportive of this dialogue, of organizing this dialogue. And it has been a journey, and we want to appreciate them. We'd like to thank FAO headquarters for their partnership. We also want to thank FAO Rwanda for the organization of the dialogue. They have been immense. Their support has been immense for the organization of the dialogue. Also, we like to appreciate UN Habitat, and also, more importantly, our cities who have made this possible. We want to appreciate the city of Kigali and the Rulindo district. And as we go on, I'd like us to please make use of the chat box, and we also post messages on the chat box so that you can follow us very closely. Permit me to share the agenda with us, even as we start today. So we'll have the official opening by our cities. That's the city of Kigali and Rulindo district. And we'll have a presentation from one of my colleagues. She's going to present on the African City Food Exchange and how this links up with the UNFSS process. And after that, we engage in some presentations, basically to contextualize what is going on in our cities, in both the city of Kigali and the Rulindo district. And so we have 4 sets of presentations. I urge you to please enjoy the presentation, give your comments in the chat box, and then we'll try and entertain any question. After that, after setting the scene, and we might have contextualized the issues in the food system in these cities, we will go into this session of breakouts. We'll have breakout discussions, and then we invite our facilitators to report back to plenary. From there, we'll have reflections on the actions and how the city can commit, what can the city commit to the UNFSS process. And after that, we have the closing remarks. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome, I think the Deputy Mayor of Rulindo District is here, is available to us. And for the official opening of the dialogue, I want to invite Deputy Mayor Prosper Mulinda to give his opening speech. Over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. dear Regional Director of ICLE Africa, representative of FAO Rwanda, Dr. Gorbel Gehunu, Mr. Emmanuel Rubingisa, the Lord Mayor of Kigali City, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Mayor of Rulindo, Mr. Emmanuel Kyranja, who could not make it to participate because of other duties, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this UN Food Systems Summit Independent Dialogue, aiming at leveraging the food systems in Kigali City and Rulindo District. In the Rulindo District of Northern Province, as in most of the other districts of the country, there exists subsistence agriculture with a small share of agriculture products being commercialized. Rulindo is at the proximity of Kigali City, and food flow is much more stronger between both Kigali and Rulindo. I do understand that as part of the summit process, independent multi-stakeholder food dialogues will offer opportunities for our citizens to engage directly in proposing pathways towards sustainable food systems, exploring new ways of working together, and encouraging more collaborative action between Kigali and the district of Rulindo. As a first step, there is huge potential in mapping the food flows between Kigali and the neighboring districts, including, of course, Rulindo district, as well as understanding the food system activities, opportunities, and threats. Moreover, there is the need to ensure that within food systems, relations between these cities on the one hand and with peri-urban and rural areas on the other hand become more symbiotic. And I'm very happy to let you know that this mapping is ongoing, undertaken by FAO, and we take this opportunity to thank FAO for its huge support provided to Rulindo District food systems projects currently being undertaken. At district level, we do hope that this dialogue will explore first possibilities and opportunities for improving the resilience and sustainability of the food systems of Kigali and Rulindo district. Sustainable access to nutritious and safe diets by our community residents. Number two, it will help us to look at policy interventions that are necessary for promoting food systems sustainability in our district, in neighboring districts, and in Kigali City, which is the main market for our commodities. We are much appreciative for this initiative because one of the expected outcomes of this dialogue is of supporting the district to be more strategic when it comes to improving its food system, while linking the district with its neighboring districts and mainly Kigali City for a sustainable and resilient food system towards food and nutrition security for our communities. With these remarks, I wish you a fruitful deliberation to you all. Thank you very much.
Then thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Prosper. It's very encouraging to hear that. And yeah, the dialogue is about giving people voices and making the voices of cities heard, even at the global arena. So thank you very much for that message. Without further ado, I would like to invite the Mayor of Kigali, who is here with us, Mayor Emmanuel Kyranja, to give his opening speech and declare open the dialogue officially. Mayor?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Deputy Mayor Prudence.
Yes, thank you so much. I was about to correct my name. I'm Prudence Rupingisa, the city mayor. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. The FAO Rwanda representative, ICLAI director, mayor of Rulindo district, and a colleague, DGs present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is really my pleasure to welcome you to this UN Food System Independent Dialogue that focuses on the sustainability of the food systems in the city of Kigali and of course, Rulindo district. I also understand that this dialogue aims at exploring the possibilities and opportunities for improving the resilience and sustainability of the food systems of Kigali city and the Rulindo district. And also that discussions will definitely move beyond the short-term responses to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and that we are facing in Kigali and also in the Rulindo's food systems across our both cities, to more long-term approaches for ensuring continued access to nutrition and also safe food in the face of climatic shocks that we are also facing, and other stresses that are disrupting our food systems. We do hope that these discussions will definitely result also into policy interventions that are necessary for promoting health diets, food and nutrition security in the city of Kigali and in the Rulindo district, different ways in which we might better link the urban and para-urban and of course in rural food systems to ensure sustainability of these systems. Ladies and gentlemen, when I looked at the aims of these kind of dialogues, I have felt much comfortable and I would say also excited because Rwanda recognizes that planned urbanization creates opportunities for socioeconomic growth, and it is now promoting urbanization policies that we are also putting towards in our development agenda. A number of studies have also shown that strengthening rural-urban linkages may also increase the resilience of food systems to different shocks and stresses from multiple risks that can include climate and the pandemics that we don't control really, leading to food and nutrition security in different communities, including ours. Therefore, food systems, food procedures, transporters, sellers, processors must ensure that healthy and nutritious foods are really available and not wasted. So in such ways, the emerging risks of city region food storages and high prices would be mitigated through proper city region food systems planning. I do expect that this dialogue will definitely left us with key strategies to strengthen the resilience of food systems in the city of Kigali and surrounding areas, including the Rulindo districts, but also some other, districts that which borders Kigali and supply an important amount of food products in the city of Kigali. Therefore, coming up with solutions towards making sustainable and resilient food systems in both cities, I mean here Kigali and Rulindo district, would be one of the solutions towards a secured food and nutrition in Kigali, particularly. As I conclude with these remarks, I wish you successful deliberations that I'm sure will yield proposed interventions to make Kigali City and the Rulindo districts food systems sustainable and resilient to different shocks and stresses that we might be facing now, also in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Prudence Rubingiza. It's indeed a pleasure to listen to your emphasis on planned urbanization. When we plan, and you have emphasized the importance of planning. When we plan, then it creates opportunities, and so it eliminates also threats that we can see. And the linkages between the rural areas and the urban areas in terms of the food system, it's very, very important. And it's one of the major focus of this dialogue today. Thank you very much, Mayor. I would like now to invite the country representative of FAO in Rwanda, the person of Dr. Gilbert Behuno, for his opening speech. Dr. Gilbert, thank you very much.
Thank you, moderator.
Dr. Gilbert, if I may say that, can you please lower your camera a little so that we can see your face?
All right, let me do that right away. Is that better?
Yes, it's better now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Moramutse, good morning and bonjour to the Francophones. Mr. Prudence Rubingiza, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, the mayor of the city of Kigali, the mayor of the city of Rulindo. I also would like to acknowledge the presence on this call of Mr. Jean-Claude Musabimana, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, his presence as national convener of the National Dialogues of the Food Systems Summit. The representative of ICLEA Africa, representatives of all institutions here present, COICA, World Vision, APEFA, SNV, and my apologies if I have forgotten any institution. My FAO colleagues, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I thank you for engaging actively in the organization of this Independent Food System Summit, National Dialogue for Kigali and Rulindo cities, and would like to refresh your minds on issues that make food systems dialogues of paramount importance from global to city level. It first matters to understand why the United Nations are focusing on food systems. Obviously, the reason lies in the importance of food systems for the world. And the term food system refers to all activities undertaken to produce edible items, process, transport, and consume them. What this means in reality is that each of us, wherever we are, no matter the country, is an actor of the food system, at least as a consumer. We could say unmistakably that our health depends on the quality of the food we eat, and therefore on the quality of the food system we depend on for our living. A very simple example to illustrate this is food pollution by abuse use of pesticides. By eating such pesticide-contaminated foods, we deteriorate over short or long term our health. When the food systems we depend on as consumer or producer collapse, our individual and collective well-being also collapse, as we have experienced in the early months of the current COVID-19 pandemic. During the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, during the early months, border closures, stopping air and ground traffics have seriously affected food systems, food provision, and food security in every single country in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic crisis has illustrated quite well that food systems bind all human beings together, no matter the country where they live. The pandemic has also demonstrated that most world food systems are fragile and quite vulnerable to crisis, and poor people are the most affected when food systems collapse. It goes without saying that building resilient food systems that ensure food availability in each country is the only way to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals defined by member countries of the United Nations, starting with the very first one of zero hunger. Building resilient food systems in the world can only be done if each country takes appropriate measures to build internally resilient and sustainable food systems. Need of actions at country level is the reason why the Food Systems Summit called for the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, must be preceded in each country with national dialogues that bring together all actors of the prevailing food systems. The objective of the Food Systems Summit are articulated, as you know, around 5 pillars. 1, ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all, which means enabling all people to be well-nourished and healthy. 2, shifting to sustainable consumption patterns, which means promoting and creating demand for healthy and sustainable diets, reducing food waste. 3, boosting nature-positive production at sufficient scales, which means acting on climate change, reducing emissions and increasing carbon capture, regenerating and protecting critical ecosystems, and reducing food loss and energy usage. 4, advancing equitable livelihoods and value distribution, which means raising incomes, distributing risk, expanding inclusion, promoting full and productive employment. And 5th, the last and not least, building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stresses. And that means ensuring the continued functionality of healthy and sustainable food systems. All those 5 pillars are relevant for the sustainability of urban and peri-urban food systems. In fact, it is well recognized that at present, more than 50% of the world's population is living in urban areas, and it is estimated that by 2050, this figure will rise to nearly 70%, with most growth being in Asia and Africa, and Rwanda is no exception to this trend. Cities are strongly demanding support to plan, design interventions to make food systems more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient to natural shocks, with strong rural-urban linkages, including emphasizing the role of small-scale farmers to scale up sustainable practices and improve the food systems in a holistic manner. The Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, where over 150 cities from developing and developed countries committed to build more sustainable and resilient urban food systems, represents well this growing interest. Among its recommended actions, it is specifically proposed to develop a disaster risk reduction strategy to enhance the resilience of urban food systems, including those cities most affected by climate change, protracted crisis, and chronic food insecurity in urban and rural areas. It is expected that the independent food system dialogue we are having today will explore the possibilities and opportunities for improving the resilience and sustainability of the food systems of cities in Rwanda. I do hope that discussions will come up with short-term responses from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on national cities' food systems, and also to more long-term approaches for ensuring continued access to nutritious and safe food in the face of climate shocks and stresses and other disruptions. I also hope that while aligning the discussion of this dialogue to the objectives of the UN Food System Summit, you will come up with possible policy and planning interventions that are necessary for promoting healthy diets, food and nutrition security among cities residents. I wish to emphasize that while good policy matters for sustainable and resilient food systems, most important is policy implementation by taking policy into planning at decentralized level. Finally, I do hope that you will also come up with tangible and clear proposals of interventions that help in building more and strong linkages between main cities and the rural food systems in Rwanda to ensure their sustainability and resilience. With this, allow me to welcome you again to this Independent Food System Summit Dialogue, which is an important avenue for Kigali, Rulindo, and other cities in Rwanda to ensure the sustainability and resilience of their food systems toward a food and nutrition secure Rwandan communities. I wish you fruitful discussions. Thank you for your attention. Merci de votre attention. Murakoze Chane. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Beonu. I mean, I like your emphasis on the fact that when food system collapses, our individual and collective well-being suffers. And so it is our collective responsibility to make sure that this doesn't happen. So I'd like to invite now the UN Habitat representative, Hannah Maria Delila, to give her opening speech before we continue.
Good morning.
Hannah Maria.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Good morning, colleague. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for this dialogue. Okay, I'm Hannah Maria and from UN Habitat. So Sub-Saharan Africa is undergoing rapid urbanization with the total share of urban population projected to increase to 60% by 2050 from the current 40%. By 2050, almost 1.3 billion Africans will be living in areas defined as urban compared to 460 million today. This rapid urbanization is accompanied by a number of urban challenges, such as growing informal settlements with no access to basic services, informal economy, unemployment, urban poverty, food insecurity, and overall inequality. Combined with the climate change-induced increasement and the unpredictability of natural hazards, the urban poor are left extremely vulnerable. Urban food systems are an integral part in the development of sustainable and resilient cities and have the potential to alleviate these challenges. The enhancing of urban and peri-urban food production is an effective tool for sustainable urbanization and to combat poverty, and urban agriculture should become part of the development strategies of every urban center in sub-Saharan Africa in order to promote food-secure cities and eradicate poverty at all levels. In addition, the adequate provision of food is a crucial security concern for cities with growing populations. Along with the production of food, the urban food system contains activity all along the supply chain in processing, distribution, storing, retail, consumption, and waste management. In fact, the food system is highly multifunctional with multiple activities along the supply chain. Through these activities, urban food systems have the potential to contribute to food security, ecosystem services, livelihoods, economy, gender equality, climate change mitigation, and risk management and resilience in the cities. For the majority of urban poor population, access to food is through purchase at marketplaces. Unfortunately, some of the largest amount of food waste is also generated at the marketplaces. In fact, such steps of the supply chain as storage and retail are culminated in these markets. Food retail is an area already employing, for example, women, and has great potential for improving gender equality. Through innovative solutions for storage and well-regulated retail, marketplaces emerge as a central location of urban food system to combat food waste and provide equitable livelihood opportunities. Attention to food waste reduction and management also leads us towards more sustainable consumption and production patterns. Without food going to waste, less production is required. Urban agriculture diversified the food supply chains for cities, improving their adaptive capacity during disturbances. In similar light, multiple smallholders, farmers provide a number of outlets for food production. The more diverse the supply of food is, the more flexible it is against shocks and stresses. For this reason, highly industrialized systems relying on a single supplier, while cost efficient, are also extremely susceptible to disruptions from shocks. This became evident during the COVID-19 pandemic in different parts of the world as supermarkets started running out of supplies due to disruptions in transportation lines and panic buying causing acute food shortages. A more diverse and flexible system can adapt to a stoppage at one part of the system and is not as vulnerable to begin with. Moreover, urban agriculture makes cities greener and provides services against flood, heat, and pollution-related hazards. In conclusion, policy awareness is emerging about new approaches to adopt in order to address the multi-faced and the multi-sectoral challenges of urbanization concerning food security. And the Food System Summit 2021 is a clear evidence of the prominent importance that food and nutrition issues are gaining within the African urban and food security agenda. The commitment of UN Habitat is strongly focused on the need to integrate food system in a multi-sectoral food security strategy that addresses the complex issues and need for urban solution rising in a context of rapid urbanization in Africa. Moreover, local government participation is of a paramount importance for the creation of food secure urban realities organized and built on solid food dynamics, integrated with the social, political, and ecological dimension of African cities. It is fundamental that more attention is given to the environment in which food systems take place, and that urban planning practices keep food systems among the priorities with a special regard for the need and well-being of the most vulnerable people. Collaborative governance processes are needed in order to develop coherent strategies to elaborate food systems that are for everyone and take into consideration the social, the political, and ecological dimension of urban realities in Africa. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, colleagues, and merci à tous.
Thank you very much, Anna Maria. It is indeed important that we must collaborate to move the food system forward. So collaborative governance is very important. Thank you, Anna Maria, for that contribution. And so we are moving forward, and it is important for us to also contextualize what UNFSS is all about and how it links up to the urban food system processes and the dialogues that we have been organizing in our cities. So I want to invite my colleague, Solofina Nekesa, to give us an introductory presentation about these dialogues and what we seek to achieve through it. Over to you, Solo.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that. And all protocol observed, I would like to welcome you to the dialogue and thank you for joining us today. I am Solofina Nekesa from ICLEI Africa. I'm a professional officer. And before I move forward to letting you know what, to contextualize the dialogues, I would like to give you a brief introduction of who we are as ICLEI Africa. So we are a network organization of cities and local governments, and we support cities in sustainability planning, as well as represent cities in global fora. We do this across key thematic areas such as low emissions development, nature-based solutions, circular development, resilient development, and equitable and people-centered development. So under our urban systems unit, we support cities in strategizing around attaining sustainable urban food systems. And this is where this project falls under, where we are elevating the voices of African cities towards the UN Food Systems Summit. And this is done in partnership with FAO, and as well as other partners that have been very key to this dialogue, FAO Rwanda, UN Habitat, and of course, the hosts of our dialogue, the city of Kigali and Rulindo district. So I'd like to give you a background on the urban food systems dialogue that are focusing on the African cities. So with support from FAO, ICLEI Africa is conducting dialogues in 16 African cities. And really the objective here is to highlight the role that local governments are playing in improving their food systems. And here it's based on the fact that local governments are really at the forefront of addressing most of the challenges around food systems, around ensuring access to food of even the most vulnerable. And as noted earlier by some of the speakers from UN Habitat and from FAO, was that we saw this really strongly playing out during the COVID pandemic, as well as the lockdown rules that followed. So due to that, we saw that local governments had to re-strategize, reorganize to be able to ensure that there was access to food, that there was food security within their regions or within their municipalities. So we want to highlight this role that local governments are playing and will continue to play in improving their food systems. And then also to generate discussions, actions, and commitments from local governments on food systems reforms, but with a focus for today's dialogue on actions. And what are those actions that are in our different capacities, either from local governments, stakeholders, different organizations working around food? You know, what are those different actions that we can take to improve our local food systems? And then obviously to connect these dialogues to the national UNFSS member state summit dialogues. And the good thing today is that we have a representative who is organizing the national dialogues, so that the outcomes from here can feed and link into the national process, which will eventually feed into the global process. And then beyond the dialogue, we want to achieve a lasting collaboration on urban food systems and strengthen the networks for learning. And we have different platforms for this, as FAO, as ICLEI Africa, the Cities with Nature platform, the City Food Network platform, which is a collaboration between ICLEI Africa and RUAF, as well as other learning platforms that different stakeholders have. And so the roadmap to the UNFSS, so currently we are in what we are describing as phase 1, which is the engagement in and across cities. And here, what we are really trying to do is to highlight who are the key stakeholders in the cities, what are the city priorities, what existing practices are there in cities around urban food systems. And we're doing this across 16 cities. So in Eastern Africa, we successfully held a dialogue in Nairobi, in Kisumu, in Arusha, in Dodoma. And I feel that even right from the start, the dialogue between Rulindo and Kigali is a successful dialogue due to the number of stakeholders that we have present. And I hope during our breakout rooms, we can have these deep discussions around food, around existing actions that we are taking, around our priorities, as well as recommendations or actions for attaining sustainable food systems. And then in our phase 2, we shall have a sharing and co-learning across the different cities. And this will be aligned with the African City Food Month campaign. So we'll shortly send out invitations to the African City Food Month campaign, which will run throughout the month of July. And this is to enable city-to-city learning, you know, where we'll have matchmaking between cities, where cities can exchange knowledge, can exchange good practices, can exchange resources on how they're handling, on how they're trying to transform their food system. So this will all eventually feed into the UN Food System Pre-Summit as well as the summit. And then we want to keep this momentum going across the different platforms that we've highlighted. So just to take you back to the action tracks, and I think these were very well explained by our FAO representative. And that is why during this dialogue, we want to bring these discussions back a bit to these very high level topics around food. And though what we've realized in other dialogues is that it is not necessarily that the outcomes will end up being boxed in these different action tracks, but there will be sort of cross-cutting across the action tracks. But to be able to facilitate discussion, to facilitate contributions, we would like to have the discussions based on these 5 action tracks. And at this juncture, I would like to please request that we all rename ourselves according to the action track of interest. So for example, if you're interested in action track 1, which is to ensure access to safe and nutritious food, please do rename yourself.
For example, if your name is Solofina Nekesa, then add action track 1 at the end, so that when we break out into the action tracks, into the discussion rooms, you're able to make contributions towards access to safe and nutritious food. And if your interest is in action track 2, which is a shift to sustainable and consumption patterns, please do rename yourself 82 at the end of your name. And so it will continue. Action track 3, which is boost nature positive production. Please do rename yourself accordingly, your name, and then add at the end 83. And then for action track 4, which is advanced equitable livelihoods, do rename yourself and add 84 at the end of your name. And then for building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks and stresses, that is action track 5, please do rename yourself by adding 85 at the end of your name. And then we'll have breakout rooms where we'll dive deep into what, based on set questions, what are the actions, what are the opportunities within Rulindo and Kigali in attaining the action tracks? What is already happening, or what recommendations do we have from a line of expertise? And then also importantly, during the breakout rooms, it's going to be a networking session. Who is in the room? What are they working on? And are there connections that can be made between different stakeholders to be able to bring about transformation towards sustainable food systems? So I think with those few words, I would like to maybe give you 30 seconds to rename yourself according to the action tracks before I can hand over to Daniel. Thank you very much. My colleague will post in the chat the different action tracks so that you can rename yourself accordingly. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Solofina. Please, we urge you to rename yourself using the action track of your choice. Or you can post in the chats the action track that you want to belong to, and some of my colleagues can do the renaming on your behalf. I believe, yeah, some of my colleagues will be able to do that. So we have to go ahead now. And why I like food dialogue is, or food generally, is that it is something that binds everyone together. You cannot do without eating food. You cannot do without it. So food essentially is our common ground. We share it together, we talk about it, and it's time to listen to some of the presentations that we have to contextualize both cities, their food systems. And I would like to call on Leonidas Gemungo for his presentation. The presentation is titled Mapping Food Flows in Kigali, Regional Linkages as Catalysts for Sustainable Food Systems in Kigali and Rulindo. Leonidas, you can begin to share your screen now.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, but can you enlarge it further?
Yes.
As in the full screen option.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Good morning once again. All protocols observed, I go to my presentation. The title is Mapping. Pardon?
Please go ahead. You can continue.
The title is Mapping Food Flows in Kigali, where we need regional linkages as a basis for sustainable food systems in Kigali as well as in Rulindo. My name is Leonidas. I am a senior research fellow from Rwanda Agriculture Board, but very recently I joined FAO Rwanda as a senior value chain expert consultant. I start by setting the scene, showing that Rulindo and Kigali city are close one to another. As you may see, Kigali city has 3 districts: Gasabo, Nyarugenge, and Kicukiro. and Rulindo is neighboring Kigali city, and that is a rural district where foods are coming from to Kigali. I have highlighted also Musanze to show that food flows are not coming from near neighboring districts only, but they come also from far, like Musanze and other districts which are far. Rulindo, as you know, is a rural district, very hilly, and in between the hills, we may find valleys and rivers. So many rivers which call watersheds, around 7 watersheds, where those rivers are passing through. Some of those watersheds you may know are Yanze, Nyarububa, Rusine, Bahimba, Muyanza, Kyo, Harukeri, and so on and so forth. Rulindo has 17 districts and the total population around 300,000 inhabitants. And the households are around 17,000 households with an average of 5 persons in a household. The rural area absorbs 97% of the population. Only 3% are in urban area of Rulindo. The 1 kilometer square absorb 507 inhabitants. The land size is very small, 0.7 hectare per farmer, and the main source of income is agriculture with 52%, and small businesses absorb 8% only. When we move to Kigali city, it's a city with growing population. The population from 2012, from the census of National Institute of Statistics, we were below 1,000 people in Kigali city. But now we are around 1,120 people. So the population is growing and it might double in 2035. The city is characterized by a mixture of high mountains. Kigali itself comes from a name of Mount Kigali. So there is an expanding settlement, even in risk-prone areas, where we can see steep slopes and floodplains. It's fortunate that local leaders have put in place master plan to block those settlements. The population, as I said, was below 1,000 people, but they may double in 2035. There is increasing concerns for food flows in the city and for food scarcity. I have said that 3 districts make the city and they consume staple foods from surrounding districts. I will show those districts in the following slide. But meanwhile, I can tell you that Kamoni is providing most cassava, Rulindo is providing beans, vegetables, and fruits. Gichumbi is providing mostly milk, Rwamagana and Bugesera provide to Kigali bananas and vegetables, while Musanze provide Irish potato and vegetables. Let's look at what Rulindo gives as main production. Main crop produced are respectively legumes and pulses, including bean and soybean, but bean comes first as a food crop provided to Kigali. Banana comes second, cassava is third, sweet potato fourth, maize fifth, vegetables and fruits sixth, Irish potato, yes, seven, and the rice is still at low production and last compared to other crops. In Rulindo, they raise livestock, mostly pigs, cows, goats, and poultry. And all households, around 80%, have one or another livestock type. These results are from recent survey of 2021 March-April report. Food flows from Rulindo to Kigali city show us that in Rulindo we have around 20 local markets, because at least one sector, that is the policy of Rwanda, one sector should have a market. And in Kigali, we have around 35 markets. Of course, we have 35 sectors in Kigali, and the policy is well respected. Each sector has a good market. But the big markets are Nyabugogo, Nyarugenge, Kimirongo, and Kabuga. They are the biggest, and they absorb 80% of the sales from Rulindo. Rulindo provides also food to Musanze, and Musanze has market absorbing around 15% of Rulindo harvest. Also, surrounding districts of Rulindo, like Gakenke, Gicumbi, and Gasabo in Kigali city, they absorb Rulindo produce. Food consumption in Rulindo, residents consume mainly locally grown foods. Unlike in Kigali, because they don't produce much, they consume what they buy, what they purchase from rural districts. The food in Rulindo is a dietary diversity, but low. We can observe that auto-consumed food is, however, very low for vegetables and fruits. They consume only 16%, and they sell to Kigali city the rest. They purchase concerns mostly rice, sugar, salt, and cooking oils, and they purchase all those from Kigali city. The residents of Kigali city consume mainly what they purchase from the rural districts. They have very little produce from the city districts, the free I mentioned. They have around 35 markets, as I said, and they purchase in supermarkets, imported commodities like rice, sugar, salt, and cooking oils also. When it comes about the challenges, food systems in Kigali and Rulindo have several challenges, and the first one concerns food losses. Food losses are very high, between 30 and 40%. And some solutions against these food losses are processing units. In Rulindo, for example, we have only one big, and we need more. Another solution is the market linkages with Kigali City. And another one solution is about post-harvest infrastructure and equipment, like cold rooms for vegetables, storage boxes for all the produce types. The second challenge is about transportation from the field to the local markets and to the bigger markets of Kigali. For that, we need to construct feeder roads, more feeder roads to the neighboring districts, Gasabo, Gicumbi, and Gakenye, and Musanze. There is another challenge of price fluctuation, and this needs a demand and supply equilibrium. There is another challenge. The fourth one is soil erosion, as well as in Rulindo and in Kigali, including landslides and flooding. To solve that problem, we need terraces on hillsides and waterways. And we need also strong water canals in all the marshlands. Droughts is another challenge. We counter it by irrigation facilities. Pest and disease is for everywhere, and we have to control these ones. For the flooding, I have here an example of Rulindo in Bahimba marshland. You may see this is destroying all crops. And in Bahimba, they have maize, vegetables, beans, soya beans, all those are destroyed. And the food system, the food flows are disrupted because of this. This is only one example I am giving. Food opportunities, we have high production in the rural districts, and we have selling points. But as you may see the example of sweet potato, I took the photo very recently on a field visit. It's a selling point with poor packaging and losses risks. We need to organize this. We have availability of marshlands, and we have water for irrigation, which is available from the rivers. Key recommendations, I have put there around 5. 1, we have to increase production through marshland reclaiming and maintenance. We have to increase market linkages to reduce high level of food losses from producers, marketers, and consumers. We have to strengthen food processing units. We have to develop the selling points and packaging techniques, and we have to enforce food policies. We have also to pay attention to COVID-19 measures. Thank you for your attention. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Leonidas. If you may please end screen sharing.
Yes.
Please, I want to urge our presenters to please keep to time. I think we are running a little bit late, so it would be good for us to keep to time, the allocated time, so that you present and then so that we can have time for discussions and all of that. I would like to invite now Dr. Kisinto Nishimwe for his presentation. He's going to be presenting on game-changing solutions for sustainable food supply and consumption in both the city of Kigali and Rulindo district. Over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you. You can see my screen. Okay. Yeah, I'll be presenting on now game-changing solutions for food supply and then consumption. So maybe I'm going to present this background have been highlighted. To come to talk on the next challenges that we face by 2050. So the global population will be more than 9 billion of people. So the question now here is, which now the whole goal of this dialogue, feed now the world's population. So proposition. So we can increase the current production, but this, so
Hello.
we don't have to plan it.
Dr. Kisito, can you please maybe perhaps switch off your video, because it seems to be breaking.
Okay.
Yeah, then you can continue. Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, so if we keep now increasing the current production, it means that we need more agricultural land, and one planet, it means that we have a negative impact on biodiversity and then environment. So, which means this is not really a sustainable solution. So now the game-changing solution, it's now starting, as has highlighted by the mayor of the city of Kigali, it is starting now think how can reduce the post-harvest losses and also food waste, which is globally, it's estimated 10% of the current production. And then this may be the one of the sustainable, so it's now the food and then nutrition needs. So, and then this has been also now engaged in now SDGs, for instance, the number 12, where it highlighted just at least globally, we can target now to have now the current food waste and the post-harvest by 2030. So this was now a little bit now the global context, but if we try to focus on Rwanda, you can see currently where we are, and then by 50, we'll be more than 22 million. And it was estimated that the recent report that I was reading in newspapers, that more than 70% of Rwandans will be living in urban centers. In Kigali, so this figure by in 2020, we are more than 1 million, kind of. So you can see now how the situation will be in 2050. So how about now Rulindo? Rulindo has been highlighted by Leonidas, the current situation of the population. And then if we use the same projection that I showed previously, it means that more than 70% will be living in small cities. So there is no really formal cities. We have only urban centers with 100 hot agglomeration. The other thing is highlighted some key commodities like commodities, the food of Kigali. So this is kind of now the mapping flow. As when we were conducting now the of food systems in a Rulindo district, what we come up in this focus group discussions, you can see we have farmers, and then they are bringing the production to cooperatives, takers. We have some processors around for maize, and then the production will be like now bringing it to Kigali. Other part will be intended for the raw. So there are also a couple of collection centers in the district of Rulindo. So some initiatives. So we can see there's like now the Muyanza site. So which now is benefit more than 12,000 households are benefiting from site. And then mainly crops are now horticulture, and then fruits. You have also beans, and then Irish potatoes. However, we still have some challenges, the high level of stunting. We have not insufficient modern storage facilities for perishable products. During now the focus, during now the focus group highlighted limited access to market information, price volatility, and then high prices of certified seed, but also droughts and then flood that has been highlighted in the previous presentation. Some good news. So we have some solutions over there. So we have now some milk collection centers use the rejected milk due to the poor. We have 2 vegetables collection centers, not enough, but this is a very good start where they have been constructed in cooperation with FAO. So their construction of drying shelters, and then also they have mobile dryers which are available, levels. All of these to reduce now the post-harvest losses. So farmers also have access to improved inputs. So in the district of Rulindo, 2 modern markets were constructed. And then all this with the overall goal to improve production and then reduce losses, we now increase now farmers. In Kigali, this is the food waste mapping, which was conducted last year in Kigali. You can see different causes, high seasons, inadequate food waste, and then overall, hotels and then restaurants are still now the hotspot of food waste here in the city. So, however, though this was the situation, there are some solutions. Food waste prevention and management in the city Kigali was developed in the collaboration with the FAO, and then is available. I think now it has been started being implemented. Others projects to valorize now food waste using, for example, like black soldiers fire insects, and then to animal feeds, but also the food waste into organic solution costs. So by highlighting these solutions and then challenging, I want to thank you for attention. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nishimwe, for your presentation. It's been enlightening, and the emphasis on sustainable solutions to curb food waste and post-harvest losses is highly noted. And I believe that we'll be able to engage with this further in our discussion rooms. I'd like to invite now Dr. John Baptist Zegrimfia, who is going to be presenting on sustainable urban agriculture for employment creation in the city of Kigali and Rulindo district. Dr. John Baptiste.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. As you mentioned, my name is Jean Baptiste. I'm currently working at the Institute of Policy Analysis and Research as the Senior Research Fellow. Quickly, allow me to share my screen so that I can take you through the presentation that I've prepared on the sustainable urban agriculture for employment creation and food security in Kigali and Rulindo. So without taking much of your time, the presentation that I tried to elaborate.
Dr. John Baptiste, can you enlarge your screen, the full screen option for us to see better?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, I'm trying to fix it. Okay, thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, the presentation will be all about the sustainable urban agriculture for employment creation and food security in Rulindo. As a background to this one, the contents will be about the background, sustainable urban agriculture in Rwanda, employment creation, food security within Rulindo and the city of Kigali, conclusions and recommendations. Much about this presentation have been highlighted by the previous speakers, both Leonidas and Kizito. What I will do is just a compression to what they try to present to us. Starting with the background, I quickly take you through the short background, whereby sustainable food systems are conceived and believed to be fundamental in ensuring that future generations are food secure across the globe, including the city of Kigali, as well as the Rulindo district. Therefore, building sustainable and food secure cities have been identified as one of the key development goals for the 21st century. And as a driver to food security, urban agriculture is continuously becoming a practice all over the world. In this regard, Rwanda has put strong commitments, institutional and legal frameworks to improve the nutrition as well as the food security in order to enhance the private sector involvement as well as the inclusion of the smallholder farmers. Also, under our Vision 2050, Rwanda has put more emphasis on the agricultural productivity so that our country can have an agriculture contributing to its sustainable development. Also, the agriculture sector continues to be the central driver for the Rwanda transformation towards a knowledge-based as well as a middle-income country and economy. The sector provides employment for over 2/3 of the working population, and it remains considered as a backbone for the sustained economic growth for the country. In addition to that, a large share of the population remains dependent on the rain food agriculture as well as of consumption. However, despite all the efforts that have been deployed in the sector, over the past 10 years, the food security as well as nutrition still have to be enforced because there is a room for improvement comparing to the current status. Regarding the sustainable urban agriculture in Rwanda, we are all aware that as countries urbanize, the agriculture share for employment automatically decrease at some extent, whereby urbanization can influence almost every aspect of the food consumption and also of the production of the foods. Principally, people from the rural areas of Rwanda have the ability to produce their own food, while, as mentioned by Leonidas, the present speaker, the previous speaker, while the city dwellers are mostly dependent on the food from the market. Also, the rapid population growth adds the need for more food production, sometimes also encroach on the agricultural land. Again, the rapid transformation in agriculture for economic growth and farm level food security still require more investments to finance within the policy agenda that the country has put in place. In addition to that, urban agriculture is becoming prominent within our secondary cities. You are aware that Rwanda has put in place the 6 secondary cities, currently the satellite cities, in order to release the pressure on the city of Kigali and have these cities as the development pause across the country. Within the city of Kigali and other urban centers, we are seeing urban gardens in some of the households, which is becoming a practice as part of the urban agriculture in our country. And also some of our urban households are now raising livestock, small livestock, including poultry, pigs, and many others. So, frankly speaking, different groups, different agencies are now putting in place more efforts in helping to popularize the vertical farming in the bag concepts so that the city dwellers come up with their own gardens using small materials and the local materials such as sacks, filled with soils and sands, etc., etc. Very interestingly, the agriculture was also officially incorporated into the conceptual city master plans, whereby we are having the zonings of some of the areas that can be considered as meant for the agriculture within the cities. So this is very potential to help the city transformation in terms of production, in terms of income generation, also in terms of strengthening the urban food supply at some extent. For food security as conceived by the FAO, it is when we have all people at all times having physical, economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food so as to meet their dietary needs. And this food insecurity is becoming a global phenomenon. Also, Rwanda being a part of the world, whereby urbanization is being mostly accompanied by a number of challenges and problems associated with poverty as well as food insecurity. And in this regards, a combination of urban poverty, suboptimal food distribution systems, inadequate food supply from the rural to the city, still becoming problematic due to a number of reasons and triggering factors. So the main factors that determine that city dwellers' access to food include policies, include markets, food prices, employment, urban agriculture, and many others. Now, what the country is doing is to make sure that we are food secure, also involving all the stakeholders within the PPP, public-private partnership. Regarding the employment creation, as mentioned earlier, you see that within this agriculture process, we are having market, we are having selling points, we are having producers. Along the chain of this food generation, employment is being created at all the nodes of production. So in principle, we know that urban agriculture is believed to be the source of employment and income to the people involved into that sector. For our country, we are still relying on agriculture to around 70% of the people involved within the sector, while 72% of the working population still being employed within the agriculture sector. So now we are trying to do a shift from the subsistence to the modernized as well as to the non-farm jobs or employments. So to boost the living conditions of the urban as well as the rural households, there is a need to improve our food security from the agriculture as a main sector driving our economy at some levels. So quickly, without taking much of your time, I think a lot will be discussed during the interactions and discussions. We know that policy, infrastructure, finance, capacity building at all levels become the key that can help to prove or to strengthen the urban agriculture within the city of Kigali and also within the Rulindo urban centers, urban areas, as Rulindo is considered as a rural district. So given the predominance of the agriculture sector, the government, the city of Kigali, the Rulindo need to put a priority on investment in order to increase the urban agricultural productivity, strengthening the rural-urban linkages, and also to promote the agriculture value chain. Again, with more poor people living in the cities, including the city of Kigali, the Rulindo urban centers, there is a need to support and strengthen the urban agriculture programs so that food security and nutrition can be considered as the key and mainstreamed across all other development programs. Urban agriculture can also provide people in Kigali and Rulindo with a source of income. There is also a need to embark on a multi-stakeholder approach in addressing the urban agriculture challenges, taking into account the uniqueness of the both districts and cities. Also, urban dwellers in their putting in place and establishing the gardens, they have to be guided and capacitated on how to use it efficiently and effectively, like the growing of the vegetables and fruits. So sometimes when you are walking around the cities, you see there is no avocado tree, there is no papaya. So those are the kinds of the practices that FAO and the other stakeholders need to put emphasis on jointly with the government. Urban agriculture also proves to be a very key factor in prompting the employment conditions and the improvement of the food security. So making this urban agriculture sustainable need to be also taken as a topic for the research in order to generate or to provide the evidence-based to inform our policy and decision makers based on the findings from the studies. So the last but not least, I tried also to look at policy level to see some of the policy recommendations, whereby there is a need to improve the coordination with the local level through Minagri and the other actors and the representatives from the local levels. Also, there is a critical need to put in place a strong enabling environment, especially the enablers for the urban agriculture within the city of Kigali and Rulindo, so that the sector can be boosted to respond to the needs of the cities. Human capital development is also very key in prompting the growth of the urban agriculture. Again, there is a need to increase the market size in order for the city of Kigali and Rulindo become more attractive and competitive, as well as urban agriculture businesses and investment is concerned. So finally, in a nutshell, there is a need to adapt our policies, especially industrial policies, local opportunities to the urban agro-processing value addition for the local agriculture and livestock products, among others. So I thank you very much for your kind attention. Questions, comments, and also inputs are mostly welcome. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean-Baptiste, for your presentation. I mean, you've highlighted it clearly. And I like the fact that you emphasize the importance of making available even urban land for urban agriculture to actually take place, and the importance of coordination between local governments and our cities. So it is important. Maybe I should remind our participants that very soon after the next presentation, we are going to be going to the discussion rooms, and it is important for us to rename ourselves to highlight the action track that you want to belong to or that where you want to participate to facilitate that. So if you can rename yourself, it is good. My colleague will share how you can do that on the chat box. But if you cannot do that, you can maybe just post on the chat box the action track that you want to belong to, and then my colleagues can do that for you. If we don't do that during the next presentation, we might be, for those who did not rename themselves, they may be randomly assigned to different discussion rooms. Let me now invite Ms. Peggy Mativo and James Mnalura for their presentation on strategies for efficient food waste management in Kigali and Rulindo districts. Peggy, over to you. Can you please stop screen sharing, Dr. John Baptiste?
Very much. Thank you very much.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. Can you maybe enlarge it, full screen option? Oh, yeah, it's fine now. It's fine.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Peggy Mativo. I am a consultant with the Boston Consulting Group. Excited to be here with you to talk about food waste management, but also more than that, to share the approach that we're taking to the food systems analysis work that we're doing. I'm with a project called Unfss, which stands for Food System Transformative and Integration Policy. And really our work is really looking at, how do we ensure that the food systems across Africa promote sustainable, healthy diets for all. So we're working with different African countries, Rwanda, Ghana, and Malawi, for starters, to really support a fact base, so development of evidence around the food system, and approach that is repeatable across different countries. And the idea is that we'll start work that also takes an intergenerational perspective to ensure that the food system is sustainable and transformative in the long run. We have 5 key deliverables that I'd love to share with you before we dig into the rest of the session. These are things that will be ready by September, so we'd love to share with the different stakeholders on this conversation as well. We're building out a diagnostic analysis that I'll begin to talk about the current state of the food system. Then we're also landscaping to understand where the key stakeholders are across the food system. We're developing a toolkit that is reusable across different countries, putting together food policy implementation research, and finally, we're also looking at the ag energy policy landscape so that we have an end-to-end view on what the food system is. One thing that's really unique about the approach and how it even ties to the conversation that we have today is we're really looking at the 5 action tracks of the Food System Summit that our colleagues have also highlighted on, and saying, okay, we understand the action tracks, but then how do we begin to systematically develop a picture of where the food system is? And so for each of the 5 action tracks, we've put together a list of 3 to 5 indicators, which we're calling supra indicators per action track, to really give us a big picture perspective. So if you look at these 5 action tracks, you should be able to get a big idea, not necessarily the full picture, where the country is or where a city is. So this is an approach that can actually be customized to a city. It can also be used at national level, and also looking at it at international level. Specifically for food waste and food loss, the indicators that are most prevalent, that are most prominent for today's conversation will be nutrient supply, which is number 2, sustainability of diets, 7, the food waste index, which is number 8, and we'll spend some time on, the food environment, emissions, and food loss, which is number 12. So we'll systematically go through each of these and actually present an analysis of this. Because of time for today, we'll just focus on 2 of these specific indicators. We're also building a summary page that just tells us again, how is an individual country performing against Africa, against the world, so that we're able to benchmark against places where we're saying this is the target or this is the national ambition. As my colleagues have said, food waste is a global problem. we're losing about a third of the food that is produced, which has environmental costs as well as economic costs to farmers and the entire value chain. I think one thing I'd love to highlight on this slide is that, food waste looks different. Food loss and food waste looks very different. So if you look on the right side of this, for instance, you'll see that in places like North America, the food waste, food loss problem has a big part that is consumer generated. And so they have a lot more room for consumer focused interventions. Whereas when we look at sub-Saharan African countries, we'll see that a lot of the food loss, food waste, the 97% occurs between production and retailing. And only about 3%, again, on average across all these countries, occurs at the consumer level. So this part means that the interventions that we design for food loss, food waste actually need to be customized for our particular local context. I also recognize, like my colleagues said, that there have been great strides in ensuring food security, with three main types of strategy being considered. So, food security has dropped from 48%. Food insecurity has risen from 48% to 81% in 2018, and the goal is to fully eradicate food security. To fully ensure food security. So that means, we're looking at three particular strategies. One is in increasing domestic production and productivity. The second is increasing food imports. And the third possibility would be reducing the amount of food that is lost and wasted. Of course, there are constraints that I'd love to share, especially when we're looking at productivity and imports. But we see with waste, food loss and food waste, it's already looking at food that we have produced. So we're saying there's a particularly big opportunity if we can actually capture back the food that is would have potentially been lost or wasted. We're also seeing that food waste and loss is significantly important to Rwanda. So part of the SDG 12.3 commitment, part of the Malabo Declaration, and part of and the NDC policy actions. So there's a lot of commitments internationally that have been made around food waste management, which is why we need to have this conversation today, even about food waste management in Rulindo and in Kigali and across both cities. And of course, across the country, we're seeing that food loss and food waste have a significant cost implication for the country, both in terms of use of resources, but also in the needs that they're pushing us to invest in. So Dr. Octave Semwaga, for instance, has talked about, all the work that the government is doing to put in warehouses and milk storage facilities and so on and so forth to help reduce the food waste. So I'll just recognize that work is going on. Here is an example of one of the outputs that we'll have as part of just understanding, where is Rwanda doing, where does Rwanda stand in terms of food waste versus food loss. So here we'll see that Rwanda is actually ahead of Africa and ahead of the world when it comes to food waste. And part of it is just because, there's a lot of consumption of self-grown foods, especially in the more rural areas. And then in urban areas, there's still low penetration of retail and food service outlets, which tend to be the hotspots around where food is wasted. But then this has implications as we look to the future. So as we think about the future, food, as more incomes rise, as more people start participating in the retail space, as we get more food service outlets, it is likely that the amount of food waste will actually increase, especially in urban centers. So the question now becomes, what are the things that can be done about this? So one is, thinking about food waste aggregation and valorization, both at the processing level, but also within the urban food service outlets. And then we're looking at also investing in standards and policies that actually strengthen and require retail outlets to manage the food waste. Another aspect of this is around food loss. So this is another page, again, it's a work in progress, but here when we look at food loss especially, which is very different from waste. So waste is, when we're looking at the retail and post-retail perspective, this is when we're looking from farm to when it gets to the market. And so for food loss, we're seeing that there's a lot more food loss within Rwanda versus the rest of the continent. And part of it is the needs around transport infrastructure. We're also talking about needs for post-harvest handling support. We're also seeing, that there's a need to invest in the human capacity. So as young people are looking for jobs and opportunities, eliminating food loss could actually be a big employer for a lot of them. So in terms of solutions, we're asking ourselves, and we're really exploring models that can be scaled up. So an example would be, the Kumwe maize cob model, which buys unshelled maize from farmers, and instead of having farmers really dry the maize at their farms and then sell it, and in this process incur more and more aflatoxins, we're looking at how they can collect unshelled maize, shell it, and industrialize the drying and storage process. We're also looking at opportunities to invest in transport and logistics. And we see lots of opportunities, as my colleagues have said, including the development of feeder roads, which will have the benefit of lowering the cost of aggregation, and so on and so forth. So, my colleagues have touched on the soldier fly, so I don't need to repeat that, but there are many potential opportunities within to reduce food loss across Rwanda. Here, I'd love to just highlight that, the food waste management is an issue that is very much integrated with the food system. So as we map out the food system, it's important, and we say we are each participants within the food system. It's also important to recognize that we are also each contributors to the food loss in whichever stage we are at. So we need to really understand the hotspots that are linked to more rural areas and hotspots that are linked to more urban areas. And beyond that, then we need to actually start planning for, how to integrate. So waste generation, how do we make sure at each stage there is a sound system for managing the storage, collection, transport and transfer, processing and recovery, classification and composition. And I'm saying this so that as we go to the different breakout rooms, you can also talk about what are some of the systems within Rulindo and within also Kigali. As we think through, the nature of food loss, and again, this and food waste, I also just highlight that, it's as the differentiated hotspots, as we've seen in the previous slides, there's need to actually strengthen the infrastructure, especially because of the rise in population pressure. And here, as we're thinking about it, we're thinking about what are the processes for stakeholder engagement across each of these drivers. So how do we get stakeholders to come together to really understand, this is my contribution, this is how I can play a role, and these are the actions I can take to improve or reduce the amount of food waste and food loss within the system. I've also given recommendations in terms of implications, and also, where there's opportunities for cross-city knowledge exchange, or knowledge exchange between Rulindo and Kigali. So for instance, Kigali has had a landfill system that's well developed, that's been modernized. Rulindo is on the starting end for this because of the nature of agriculture and waste management. And so there's an opportunity to exchange knowledge between these two cities, these two regions, sorry. So when it comes to food waste management, we have different strategies that could be applied. Of course, the most preferred are those that prevent food loss, and then the least preferred are those that lead us towards disposal. So we want to prevent surplus food generation or food waste generation through the entire supply chain. Also recognizing that, each player in the food system is trying to maximize the type of benefits they can receive. But we still need to ask ourselves, how can players actually avoid the surplus that they're generating? And suggestions around this include early warning systems, for instance, and providing information so that decision-making by different stakeholders along the value chain is based on most accurate information instead of reacting to historical data. The second part is really looking at what to reuse, redistribute. So again, as we are studying hotels, as we're studying urban food systems, and food waste management, we're seeing that there's a lot of opportunity to channel excess through through animal feed, or even better yet, where it is possible to donate before goods expire. Then that's a strategy that we're seeing being used very, very efficiently. We're also looking at biodigestion, and we'll be giving some of those examples as well. In terms of just interesting work that is emerging in terms of food loss and food system interventions, I'd love to highlight a few. So the first is just the Center for Excellence for Sustainable Cooling that's being developed here in Kigali. And this is with the goal of, bringing in experts, but also investors into the cold chain system because we recognize that building the infrastructure will also require lots and lots of stakeholders as well as external input. But the idea is that we'll end up, excuse me, with a cold chain system that is energy efficient and climate friendly. Here we're also seeing the wholesale market that's coming up in Kigali. Again, a market that is expected to improve logistics and planning and quality control, but is also offering additional services around cleaning and grading and drying and cold storage. I also talked a bit about the Kumwe maize storage model, where we're thinking about how do we reimagine activities that have traditionally been done by farmers and moving them to a place where they can be a little more efficient so that the process of managing aflatoxins is actually centralized. Across Africa, we're also seeing some really interesting examples. So for example, in Ghana, there's an example of GrainMate, which is a handheld portable device that you can use to actually measure the amount of moisture across different grains, being targeted at farmers, aggregators, commodity traders, and this is just improving the rate of information around just how much moisture is in different grains and how to enabling decision making. In Uganda, we've seen an example of a city abattoir, and one of my colleagues also touched on this earlier on, but a city abattoir that's really looking at, how do we take the wastewater that's coming from slaughtering all these animals and leverage it so that we're processing it so that we get biogas, we are getting slurry that we can use to plant, and finally, we're using constructed wetlands to make sure that the effluent is polished before it actually goes into the drinking water system. In Mozambique, we're also seeing a policy approach to make sure that has resulted in, including explicit post-harvest targets in the agriculture sector operational plan. In concluding, I'll say that one of the best things about our food system is that there's a lot of supporting policies and a lot of supporting guidelines, and even many different actors and implementers. And what's really needed is for us to all come together and really strengthen the level of conversation we have and the coordination that we have across the food system, so that we're making policies and initiatives that fit well together. I'll conclude by saying that we are continuing to do this work around just understanding how does one level of the food system affect the rest of the levels of the food system. So really talking about trade-offs, talking about challenges, even as we look at the different supra indicators. So in concluding, I'll say that as we think about the system of the food, that is the food system, let's also think about the system that is managing the waste alongside it in order to make sure that our production and our consumption are sustainable. I'll stop there and hand back to our moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Peggy. Of course, thank you. And thank you to all of our presenters. They have been interesting presentations. And I must also then acknowledge you for the hard work you have put into presenting these, these presentations together. Just a round of, before we go into the breakout sessions, I think some things have come out strongly in this dialogue so far, and one of them is the need for collaborative food system governance. I heard Peggy using the word that we must come together. Also, Leonidas used the word coordination. So yes, and it's one of the ideas behind the dialogue for us to come together to fashion a way forward for our food system. And some of the things that we have decided. We have also emphasized strategies for food system resilience and the need to be able to link better Rulindo district and Kigali in terms of market linkages. It's also another strategy to reduce food loss. And some of these things we can begin to ruminate about them and discuss them further in our discussion rooms. We also look at the environmental cost and economic cost of food waste. They are big, and we have to take cognizance of them. And in terms of assessing food waste, they then begin to have a systemic perspective to it, and also a value chain approach. I think Peggy mentioned that, so that you begin to look at it from the production down to the consumption aspect of the food chain. So these are important things that we can also look at in our discussion rooms in terms of solutions. So essentially, we want to look at solutions. We want to discuss about recommendations. What are the issues in our food system? What are the solutions that we can take forward? And for you to have to add your voice to the dialogue process. I think that is the next stage we are going to now. like I said earlier, it is our common ground. Food is what binds everyone together. You cannot say you don't want to eat. If you say you don't want to eat, then in a matter of time, then your body will begin to suffer for it. So how can we then approach it better? How can we plan for our food system better so that in a way that it is beneficial for everyone and it sustains livelihood? And I want to ask Sine now. Sine, if you have any question also for one of our plenary discussants, you can drop your question in the chat box. I believe we will have time for the question, maybe after the breakouts, when we come back from the breakout discussion. Today, how are we doing with the breakouts?
Daniel, I'll be opening the rooms in about 10 seconds. Those that didn't rename themselves or post in the chat which rooms they want to be in will be randomly allocated.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sine.
All sorted. I just need to open the rooms now.
Yes, so we have 5 breakout rooms, and if you have been able to name yourself, you will be put there. Otherwise, we will randomly assign you to a breakout. We have as facilitators of the breakout session, Christine Mukatwali from FAO. And so she's going to be one of the facilitators. And I think James Munanuri also. James Munanura will also be a facilitator of one of the breakout room. And my colleagues also will be facilitators, Solofina, Lauren, and yeah. Hi, Florence, you have a comment?
No, well, the only comment I had following the discussion is that it's very important to talk about small farmers, but it's also important to talk of small food processors, reviving local markets, looking at street food vendors. All the informal sector is very much a source of income for many people, but it's also a source potentially of good food. And it is very important to have catering in urban areas that promote healthy and sustainable diets, and in particular, local foods in season, preferably organic, in order to get a market for the local farmers. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks, Lawrence, for that. It is well noted. And I believe the facilitator for Action Track 2 has captured that now, to pay attention not only to small-scale farmers, but also small-scale processors, retailers, and all of that. Yeah, for us to have an inclusive food system. So I think, Sine, what's happening in breakout 1? Is everyone back now?
Yes, Daniel, we're back.
Yes, we are back.
Great, thank you. So because of our time, I would like to give our facilitators, please, 3 minutes each. Try and stick to 3 minutes. So try and highlight the most important things that came out of your discussion. I believe the reports we are going to generate will be disseminated, and maybe it will have more details of what we have deliberated upon. But for us to have a recap of what we discussed in our discussion room, I'd like to, and I'm very strict with this time issue now because we are running out of time. I'd like to invite Christine for breakout room 1 to please give a summary of their discussion. Christine.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We had a lot of discussions around the policies that should be in place with regards to food system sustainability between Kigali and Rulindo. We felt that we do have enough of policies in the country. Yes, new policies are coming up. For instance, the policy on post-harvest management strategies in the country, the current one. Then we felt the policies exist. However, the audience thought that these policies should be translated into understandable language by the farmer. In addition to the translation into understandable language by the farmer, we felt that there is a need of training and awareness creation around these policies so that each and every stakeholder in the food system knows, understand these policies very well and can implement them without difficulties. Then we felt that before even developing a policy, there is a need of starting from the farmer, doing some kind of research on the farmer's need and challenges, and then developing the policy. That was discussed among ourselves. Then there is we thought that there is a need of, for instance, Rulindo and Kigali district, basing on their topography. There is a need of strengthening the irrigation systems for some of the marshlands which are very productive once they are catered for, while taking into consideration the irrigation facilities, the agriculture input, that the production is a continuum, that the Rulindo can feed Kigali freely and with the continuation. Then we felt that there is a need of installing cooling centers into Rulindo and Kigali so that these cooling centers can be used by the stakeholders, the farmers, for reduction of food waste on one side and for the continuation of the food supply from Rulindo to Kigali and from Kigali to Rulindo and vice versa. Then when we talked about incentives, we felt that once these collection centers are in place, this is already incentive for our farmers and our stakeholders. Once the policies are being translated into understandable language, this is already incentive. We felt we don't need any extra incentive for our stakeholders to engage into a sustainability of the food system, starting from production to marketing to market formation. Then we felt there is no extra incentive that can be enough for the stakeholders. Then we went through the solutions, the type of solutions that we felt that with the high population growth, there is more degradation due to population pressure. Then there is a need of thinking around urban agriculture to increase more of the agriculture production while catering for the environment when we take into consideration this population pressure. Then we felt that with regards to the environment, taking into consideration the environment and the food waste management, we discussed that there is a need of encouraging investors to go into food recycling industries around Kigali city and the Rulindo district so that the environment is catered for and the food waste reduction is being taken into consideration also. We discussed that there exists a lot of policies with regard to the environment, with regard to food waste management, that these policies, most of the time, they are not known. There is a need of letting the stakeholders knowing about these policies and enforcing the implementation. Once they understand very well the essence of these policies, then the implementation will be easy. Then the environment and the food waste reduction, they are both being catered for. Over to you, Daniel. That is what we have discussed under action track number 1.
Thank you very much for that, Christine, for that summary. I'd like to go over to Solofina. I believe you are the one for action track 2.
It was Lauren, actually.
It's Lauren. Oh, Lauren, can you please go for it?
No problem. So action track 2 is shift to sustainable consumption patterns. And I'm going to sort of answer question 1 and 2 together, both giving examples, policies, and incentives, because we talked very broadly across both questions. So some of the key points that came out of our discussion was 1, ensuring that Indigenous knowledge is included in planning and education and policy around how people eat and what they're eating. because there has been a shift to Western diets, and then that's been to the detriment of communities in the local communities. Then there was a point around data management systems, so to enhance data-driven decision-making, which includes actors like research institutions with knowledge sharing, private sector in logistics support, local governments in creating bylaws, enforcing and enabling these kinds of systems, and then local farmers to be upskilled in how to collect the data, how to use the data to inform better what to produce when, what's in demand, demand management, also linked to food waste and food surplus problems. And then there was a discussion around sharing of good practices and more practice-based evidence sharing. So following ideas around how the FAO has these knowledge sharing hubs, like how to enable those kinds of things within the local communities, whether that's through like a local farming association having some way to disseminate the information, both around like there was we discussed quite in depth the issue around the use of pesticides and local farmers not entirely understanding how to use them, and then kind of learning by trial and error ways and losing a lot of produce in that process. So how to have that information more readily available at the local farmer level. And then linked to that, we also discussed quite in depth the issue of the difference in what is taught at universities versus what is experienced in practice, and the need to properly connect and get students out and experienced and understanding the problems at the local farmer level in order to properly connect what the research is being done and what actions can be taken to improve the local food systems. So there was a lot of discussion about people who've both gone through their whole kind of undergrad degree and never ever gone into the field, never had experience, but then had personal experience of working, and those two were very different, and the need for integration between those. And then we discussed things around transitioning towards organic agriculture and it being a slow process, and then also looking at local foods and making them available in season. And this links back to the data management system. And then there was discussions around food waste and the lack of knowledge around storage, again linked to how do we empower on the production level farmers with information of how to better store their food to prevent food waste or surplus in that sense. There was also a point around when there is food surplus and people are giving away food for free, there's sometimes a mistrust between, okay, why are you giving me this? Is it bad quality? Is there something wrong with it? So there's a need for like proper networks to redistribute in a useful way surplus food in a trusted system, so people don't think they're going to get sick because someone's giving them free food and they don't know where it's coming from. And then there was one last thing was around an emphasis towards environmental change would be to better manage the irrigation system when there's a lack of rain. That's kind of all the points on high level.
Thank you very much for that. May I please go to Solofina for our own summary?
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that. And I think I would just want to note that I wish we could extend this conversation for beyond this dialogue, because we were just getting started and then, we had to finish. So what I'm going to present is really just a snapshot of what we discussed, but I would really love to extend this further. So I think one of the things that was emphasized is issues around policy implementation. It was noted that there are very good policies in Rwanda, policies around biodiversity, policies around food, but it's in the implementation of these policies. And what is important is, first of all, national government allocating more resources towards the local level in implementation. looking at empowering local actors, for example, through capacity building. And capacity building here is at different levels. Capacity building in implementation, capacity building of different actors across the food value chain. And I'll talk more about this as I continue. And then, of course, important is evaluation of the policies. You know, if policies have been made, is there a review of these policies happening every 5 years, so that to be able to support that rapid changes that are happening in the different cities. And I think this is something that that should be explored by municipalities in terms of policy evaluation, revising policies so that they are changing as situations are changing locally. And then, for example, an example that was shared was how to look into developing a waste management policy in addition to the waste policy that is already in place in Kigali. And then, of course, strengthening the linkages between the rural to the urban areas. And this, in a way, can help to reduce issues around waste and food loss because it increases efficiency and, in a way, and reduces waste. And then another note was to encourage agroforestry by the farmers. So this is a way of managing especially soil erosion in the hilly areas of Rulindo as well as other neighboring districts. And in a way, agroforestry should be encouraged with fruit trees other than non-fruit bearing trees. And then importantly, the issue of pesticides and fertilizers. I think the key thing that came out of this is educating farmers in their local languages so they're able to understand, holding demonstrations so that farmers do know what pesticides are available, which ones are healthy and can be used for plants, in what quantities should they be used. And that's sort of empowering farmers with the right knowledge to be able to access the right products. And then access to finance was emphasized, especially for small scale producers. You know, large banks are not very friendly and approachable. So how do we ensure that small scale producers, small scale actors, small scale value chain actors can access finance? And then again, capacity building. This was sung that it's very important to empower farmers and different actors. So that is a snapshot of what we discussed.
Thank you very much. I must apologize for the limited time that we have. I can see that our facilitators are trying to put in a lot of points that emanate from their discussion. Finally, I think what I'm going to do is, because I also facilitated the session, I'm just going, when I'm rounding off, I'll point to what we discussed, because these issues are resonating in all of this discussion. So I'll give the floor for James to give us a quick summary of what came out from their own group.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. We had a discussion on the two questions, and one of them was what policies and incentive mechanisms. We looked at emphasizing the quality of inputs, especially inputs to the farmers. We said it is important that a policy which puts in place how farmers can receive the inputs should be improved, mainly for good inputs, and also looking at subsidies for fertilizers, mainly for the priority crops. We have 6 priority crops in Rwanda, and we are saying if incentives can be put in place, especially in the policy that looks at fertilizers, to look at subsidies for fertilizers, mainly for the priority crops, maize, wheat, rice, Irish potatoes, cassava, and beans. So we also said the provision of inputs should be included within the national agriculture policy. The improvement of the national agriculture policy should put into consideration the provision of better inputs. Then we also talked about inclusive markets. Inclusive markets for off-farm opportunities to be improved. This incentive is at the Ministry of Agriculture if off-farm markets, because most of the economic activities, like most of the presenters had said earlier, are in the farming exercises, but off-farm opportunities can be improved. We also talked about improvement of upgrading the technologies, the existing agricultural technologies to improve the farming methods of our farmers, to make food systems sustainable. So when we looked at the solutions which are feasible in responding to the challenges of environmental changes, we looked at transportation as a means to improve crop access to the markets, the food access to the markets. We also talked about putting in place small processing units to absorb especially the fresh produce, which are vulnerable to perishability. And then also putting in place drying technologies to reduce the vulnerability of some of the cereals and legumes to aflatoxins. We also talked about government putting in place promoting diversity of agricultural products so that farmers do not rely on one crop, but should have a diverse of crops, so that if one is vulnerable to the climate change, others which can survive the climate shocks and vulnerabilities can survive. We talked about marshland reclamation for increased agricultural production. We also said research and development should be put in place by the government. Without research, we cannot be able to achieve much in terms of policy change. So we also talked about organic farming as contributing to reduction of degradation of soils and the environment. And finally, we said, like most of you have said, capacity building will be crucial towards achieving all the above we've talked about. Thank you so much, Daniel. Back to you.
Thank you so much, James, for that. I think we're at a stage where we can begin to round off the discussion for today. And I'll provide a quick overview of what we have discussed today from our discussion room. And after that, we are going to give the floor to our mayors to respond and then to reflect on what they have heard today and what they would like to commit, the actions they would like to commit to or to just work on for their cities, and so that they can move, they can improve the food systems of this city. So after my recap, I'll give the floor to Mayor Pundes to just give a reflection and final remarks, and also to the Deputy Mayor of Rulindo District. So essentially, for me to just summarize what we have heard today, that's been a very engaging, a very informative session. And what has come out very strongly from our discussion rooms was the fact that there is enough policies in the country. Of course, it can be improved, but there are a lot of policies in the country. However, the issue has revolved around implementation, and that there is the reference to the fact that some of these policies are not in understandable language. And I think from my own group, what we also reflected on was the fact that a lot of the food system actors are not even aware of the policies. They are not aware of the provisions of this policy. And so there must be these links to awareness campaigns also, that this has to cut across all the food system actors, that they must be aware of what the policies say and for them to be able to act accordingly. One of the recommendations that came out strongly was the need also to strengthen irrigation systems. And I believe this can be worked upon. Also, to mitigate against food loss and food waste, there is a suggestion that we need to invest in storage infrastructure to install cooling and refrigeration centers so that we can reduce food waste. We also mentioned urban agriculture as a source of food security for people and also for employment generation. There's also the mention of the need to focus on indigenous knowledge, and that in terms of planning and education, we must not lose value of our indigenous knowledge. What are those things that we hold dear to, maybe culturally and over the years? And another major thing that came out is the need to invest in data management systems. It is very important for us to be able to constantly evaluate where we are at a point in time. We need to invest in data management systems and strengthen this. Also, what came out strongly from the discourse that we have had today is the importance of collaborative food system governance. And I think that is one of the sense of this gathering today, that we must collaborate to move our food system forward. And so right from, and this must involve every food system actor, whether you are in production or retail, or even in the policy environment or in the research space. We must collaborate to look at solutions to all our challenges. And what came out strongly that cannot be overemphasized is the need for awareness and sensitization campaigns, not only for farmers, but also for producers, for processors, for retailers, even for academia, for academics also. It is important that they are aware of policies and regulatory environment, and also incentives and opportunities that they can take advantage of. Also, there is a mention of transitioning towards organic agriculture, and I think that also cannot be overemphasized. In terms of policies, one of the challenges that we have had, and maybe our mayors can look at this and also allude to it, is the fact that maybe we don't evaluate progress towards achievement of our policy goals. And so there is a mention that there is need for us to constantly evaluate our policy. Also, a lot of groups also looked at the strengthening of the linkages between our urban areas and our rural areas. What are they trying to emphasize? Symbiotic relations between peri-urban areas and urban areas, and also between rural areas and urban areas. So in other words, how can we promote better linkages between Rulindo district and the city of Kigali, such that it is a symbiotic relation and not parasitic, as it were? Access to finance was also emphasized in our discussion, and also investment in transport infrastructure in order to better link our cities together and to reduce food waste. I think these are some of the things that came out very strongly in our discussion today. And I'm going to hand over now to Mayor Prudence to please reflect on what we have heard today and what the city of Kigali can basically do also to improve relations between even Rulindo and to improve the city of Kigali's food system going forward. Mayor Prudence will begin, sir.
Thank you so much, moderator. First of all, I want to thank all the presenters for different topics that were discussed, and also the different groups that start to work on the proposed best way to talk about the best food systems in our respective cities. We've had, first of all, some of the issues that we are facing, particularly for the city of Kigali. When you look at the rapid growth of the population that we have in the city of Kigali, by 2050, we shall be having like 3 times of the current population. Now, what does it mean in ensuring that there is a food safety for our population in the city? So strategically, I've heard from the discussion that issues pertaining to irrigation should be addressed too. When you look at the amount of rain that we are having in the city now, and development, infrastructure development that is also creating a lot of stormwater that we need to address in terms of proper management, because we are constructing roads, we are putting up heavy infrastructure that can create a lot of stormwater, and we will look at also the landscape of the city of Kigali, whereby what we can qualify being the urban agriculture using specifically the wetlands that we have, which have actually recently been vacated from industrials and also residentials, which were there earlier. What is it that we need to do to make sure that all the urban, agriculture is being well planned? We have mitigation strategies for the stormwater and rainwater that can be utilized through irrigation systems, proper channels, to make sure that we are not losing our soil, we are not losing our investments, we are not losing the agriculture projects that are being taken place in those provided wetlands. We also believe that there is a way, there is high need actually to make sure that the 14% food wasted is being systematically reduced, I would say, to 0%. I still believe that, synergies between all involved organs, city, and also the ministry at policy level, development partners and experts that are involved in this field, we can sit down and come up with, as it has been discussed, actually proper strategies, but also quick wins, because there is a way that we can, systematically start involving all partners in these food waste management systems, that we can make sure that we are not losing the food that is being generated by, our farmers. A long-term solution that has been put in place, yet to be put in place, but I'm sure that the Minister of Agriculture is, and also the NAEB as an exports entity, they are working on having a storage system, the international wise, to make sure that we've got these Kigali food market system that is modernized in a way that we can be able to harvest and be able to make conservation systems in place to make sure that we are not losing or wasting a lot of our food. This is a project that for us in the city, we see it as a solution, a sustainable solution that is going to help us to tackle that particular issue. I want to talk again on the capacity building. I'm sure I've been seeing a lot of young, the youth being involved in this journey. I've been seeing researchers. I've been seeing really operators, experts. How can we make sure that the identified gaps as far as the capacity building is concerned are the ones that are being tackled? We make sure that we've got this entire ecosystem, the channel from the farmer to the consumer is in the hands of capacitated people that are actually managing the entire value chain system properly. Now, as far as the city is concerned, we are ready to cooperate. We have already started engaging with the local office, FAO local office. I don't know if yes, I can see Dr. Otomuhinda is with us. We are working with the ministry hand in hand. We are also open to other opportunities, participating in these kind of forums and also learn from each other. So we want to commit that the city is very much, concerned about the food systems in the city of Kigali, so that we make sure that we align with our plans going forward. with the limited means, we can also make sure that in our plans, we prioritize, in our budgeting process, we prioritize some of these identified activities, from the irrigation to the waste management, the food waste management to capacity building, to name but a few. So we shall be engaging also with empowerment specifically for the youth that are interested to developing, as I said, the urban, agriculture processes that we need to make sure that are happening in the city. Specifically, we have vacated close to 273 hectares from wetlands. So we have available land. We simply need to sit down with the operators, with experts, with the youth that have been seen here, with the who are really very knowledgeable, so that we come up with the strategies taking us to another step. So Mr. Moderator, dear participants, want to conclude by thanking all of you for these very interesting discussions. And as a capital city, we commit that with your help, with our expertise, we shall make sure that there is a food security, there is a food safety in this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Prudence Ubegiza. It's so good to hear all of these reflections from you, and you committing to some actions that you think will take the city of Kigali's food system forward. Without further ado, I'd like to call on Deputy Mayor Prosper Mulindwa from the Rulindo district to also give us his own reflections and commitments also from the city, from Rulindo. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'm happy for the great discussions we have from the beginning of this session, and I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the mayor to thank FAO for the continued collaboration. We've been together, and most of the issues we tackled here are not new, because I've been working on them at different occasions over the years. But this topic of the food production flows between Kigali and the Rulindo district is new and is very important. We have not been focusing on it, but we really discovered that there are gaps that are left as we transact from each other, because they are not really planned, and even the policies were a bit silent on this. So Rulindo has been depending on Kigali city, but also Kigali city depended on Rulindo district in various aspects, from the perspective of the resources. Some of the water sources that feed Kigali come from Rulindo. So we have mentioned, I think some of the presenters mentioned the soil erosion as the main challenge. And it is true, if Rulindo doesn't contain the erosion, Kigali city will be affected. If Rulindo producers provide the food that is not safe or that is contaminated, Kigali city will be affected. So we need to work together, and we need the coordination between Rulindo and Kigali city, because working in isolation is not a solution in itself. So our farmers have been losing their production due to the waste management, due to the insufficient capacity building, due to the funding, maybe, because we need some infrastructure facilities for just holding our production safe. So we need the coordination. We need to we need this subject to be at the front page of the Ministry of Agriculture or RAP or NAEP, so that they consider Rulindo and some other peri-urban districts like Kamonyi, Rwamagana, Bugesera, to have our policy that is different from others, because we have that specificities. So from the view of Rulindo district, we are very appreciative, and we need this to be strengthened, to have the market well oriented to satisfy the needs of Kigali city. I think our representative mentioned it. We are not happy when we notice that the hotels of Kigali city import the foods from some countries, and that food can be grown here in Rulindo by our own farmers, and they accuse our farmers of not respecting the standards. But what it means is that the institutions involved can work together to train our people so that they can satisfy those standards, and without just relying on the external provisions, our farmers can do it without any hesitation, because we are there to build their capacities, to avail the public services that can enable them to have the good environment to supply to Kigali city. So as we start this, we are confident that we shall solve most of the solutions that were raised in the presentations and the discussions. We need to have a comprehensive plan that can be coordinated by the national institutions, that can specify what Kigali city will perform and what Rulindo district will perform, and then towards the same goal. So I thank you all for the contributions. I'm sure as we start, we shall continue to discuss further to solve the main issues that were raised. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Mulindwa. It's good, and someone already posted in the chat that you could see that there are symbiotic relations between both Kigali and Rulindo, and effort must be geared towards strengthening this further. As we are rounding off the dialogue session, I want to acknowledge the presence of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, person of Musa Emmanuel John Cloud. I don't know if you have a word for us from the ministry. As you've heard us, we acknowledge your presence, and we appreciate that you were able to stay with us for the whole session.
Thank you, moderator. I have been following the discussions, and I have been even participating in one of the group discussions. And the mine is only to thank the organizations, to thank the FAO and the organizations that have facilitated these discussions. And as all we know is that we are how to say, we are gearing toward the coming pre-summit, And this is a good pathway in order to gather all the ideas and key game-changing actions toward the sustainable food systems in Africa, in Rwanda, and all around the world. And I thank you very much and wish you a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Permanent Secretary. May I give the floor for Otto Muinda to just say one or two words about the process? Otto Muinda from MEFEO, on behalf of the representative.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's really a pleasure for me to have all these participants participating to this dialogue. Actually, I thank the Permanent Secretary and the Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources. I thank also the Mayor of Kigali City. You can imagine to give us 3 hours of his time. It's because he gave a lot of importance to this food system dialogue. I thank also the Vice Mayor of Rulindo District in charge of economic affairs, is a good friend of the UN system. So all these leaders have given the importance to this independent dialogue. The independent dialogue is among different sessions of national dialogue that we held in Rwanda to make sure that national actors discuss thoroughly the agriculture sector and the food system around this. So I don't have further ado because the FAO representative have said everything at technical level that I would say. I just want to thank everyone. I want also to thank the convener of this UN food systems in Rwanda, the Minister of Agriculture in the person of the Permanent Secretary. Actually, in Rwanda, agriculture, people doesn't sound very much livestock. While we know that livestock is part of agriculture, so I want to mention that we, as a UN system, understand that livestock is also part of agriculture, so that people understand it the same way. So without further ado, I really want to thank the whole organizing team, you, Daniel, and our colleagues that I will not name because I don't want to just to lose anyone, but I want to thank all the organizers of this session and thank you very much to all. I look forward you to participate to the national high-level dialogue that is due to take place before the end of this month. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Otto Muinda, for that. And colleagues, it has been an interesting session. I'd like to emphasize some things. The reports of this dialogue will be made available, and we work on linking it towards a national dialogue, such that the outcomes of this process will also feed into the national dialogue that Otto Muinda just alluded to. And also, we've had a lot of comments about the presentations and even the recordings and the reports. We are going to make these available for participants, and we will share this later at a later date. And just in rounding up, I just want to appreciate everyone for staying this long. I want to, just like it has been said, it is incredible and impressive to see that our mayors are with us even till the end of the dialogue session. It is, and we actually appreciate that very much. I want to also appreciate the organizers for the many calls, for the many organizing sessions that we have had. My FAO colleagues and UN Habitat colleagues on this session. Thank you very much for your efforts. Thank you for putting this together. I want to appreciate the city of Kigali also and the Rulindo district for making this possible and for also participating. I also want to thank my colleagues in ICLE Africa yeah, just I think we are Equally Africa. I think we have done a good job, and we can actually appreciate ourselves. So thank you very much, colleagues. And on behalf of the organizers of this dialogue, I want to say thanks very much for participating, and we hope to connect with you soon again. And also, I must also acknowledge our presenters also for doing a good job, for their hard work in presenting. Thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with all of you again soon. Thanks and bye.
Thank you, Daniel. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you, Daniel.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.